1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I'm joined for episode number 96 by Brian Smith. Brian, we're getting closer to 100 episodes here, which is nuts. Like that's kind of wild, actually.
That is crazy. We have. I wonder how many prospects we've talked about while on here, because I think we pride ourselves in going pretty deep on this show. So 100 episodes. I mean, have we talked about 100 players?
Oh, for sure.
So, right?
For sure. Well, there was that one episode. There was the one episode I did. It was in the off season, and I think it was a solo episode where you and Zumak couldn't join for some reason, and it was a solo episode. So I just went I think it was 70 names deep.
Okay,
so just giving
closer to 200.
Yeah. Where it was 2 sentences per player. So yeah, I think, dude, we've got to be over 200 guys, right?
Yeah.
Over the course of this is the third year doing this, I think. So we're
gonna hit on some new ones today. So
exactly. So this is the first. We're coming to you guys after the first weekend of all 4 affiliates playing. Obviously, Iowa had a full week of action this past week, and then the lower levels, Knoxville, South Bend, and Myrtle Beach, all played. Well, they played. They didn't all get all 3 games in, but they played this weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we were in the thick of minor league prospect game action, which is super fun to be back at it and back podcasting every week and talking about what we're actually seeing as opposed to prospect lists or whatever. It's fun actually seeing them in games.
We're also back in minor league baseball TV season, which means complaining about, camera angles and lighting and stadiums and all sorts of nuances that, having this hobby of trying to watch a stream at a game that, probably not that many people are even at, much less watching. It's one of those small problems, but when you're talking about it on a podcast, it looms a little larger.
It's so incredibly first world problems is having the wrong camera angle on a minor league baseball stream. That's wild.
Yeah.
No, man. So we'll talk about, we each have a handful of players that we want to kind of hit on that caught our eye over the course of the week or weekend. But before we do that, I want to kick it to you because you haven't been able to come on the show yet and talk about, you took a trip down to Mesa. You spent time down there, and you went up to good old West Sacramento to watch the Cubs play up there. What was the trip out west like for you between Mesa and Sacramento?
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, starting in Arizona, I got to watch a backfields game with Brett Taylor of Bleacher Nation, Arizona Phil of the Cub Reporter, and Rich Biesterfeld of everyone that needs a picture of a Cubs prospect. And what a just fun thing that was. 3 guys that I've gotten to know over the years, but every time watching a game, being able to run up to Rich and say, "Hey, who's that?" And Rich zooms in his camera lens on it, and Phil has more detail than you could ever imagine. And then went back a second day, took my son, walk up Jefferson Rojas autograph right as we're walking in for my son. So, really cool experience. I mean, my son the whole time was just running, getting balls that, were being sprayed out into the sort of walking area. So he walked away with a bunch of balls and a few autographs. It was a lot of fun.
That's so cool, man. I think you did this last year too, but paint a picture for us of the backfield setup, because you got the kind of clover leaf of fields back there. Yeah. What does it look like when you're going to the minor league action on the backfield down in Mesa?
Yeah, so the part that's accessible to the public are they call it the quad. It's 4 fields with sort of a hut, like a 2-level building in the middle. On the second level, on the upper deck, you'll get Cubs front office people or, developmental coaches. Justin Stone was there, I think, the whole time I was there, watching guys from both near and then up top. And then usually in the afternoon, sometimes in the late morning, they'll send 2 affiliates away for games, and then they'll have 2 affiliates host games. So on fields that are right next to each other, you have 2 games going on at once. I had essentially what was the Myrtle Beach team on one field and the South Bend team on another field. And The games are a little interesting. You know, if a pitcher throws an 8-pitch inning, they usually make him stay out and get a 4th out. If a pitcher's struggling and hits 25 pitches, no matter what, they'll say roll it, you know, is what they'll yell out loud, and everyone comes off the field. And so yeah, it's a different brand of baseball, but you know, it matters to these players. They're trying to earn a level and stuff, and it's a good chance to get a look on guys.
So I haven't been out there to check out all the action on the backfields before, but it sounds like when you go to like a travel like a youth travel baseball tournament where you have the quad of fields, but like on those experience, like you're going for your kids actually like travel team to go watch them, so you're not paying attention to the other fields. But like at this, the kids are all the prospects you're following, so you are paying attention to both fields, which is kind of fun. I don't know.
They're all our kids when we're watching Cubs minor league baseball, right, Greg?
Exactly. So then you went up to West Sacramento. Were you there for their opening night?
We were there I was there for the first 2 games in Sacramento. Real surreal experience. You know, I've been to a lot of minor league games in my life, and you know, being in a stadium that feels in every way possible minor league. You know, there's no part of it. Like I thought it was going to be a little more optimized, that they were going to have maybe done a little more, and no, they kept it pretty minor league. I know they've done some work behind the scenes and stuff, but it feels like a minor league stadium. And so, you know, to watch Justin Steele warm up as close as I'll ever get to him in a baseball stadium, you know, watching him warm up, and then just, you know, the worst seat in the house being still a better angle than you know you're going to get from most major league stadiums.
Yeah, that was what I noticed when I was watching on TV. It's just like I've watched hundreds and hundreds of games in stadiums like this, and it's not major league games.
Right. It was not at all.
Yeah, but no, that's a cool trip. So I'm glad you got to get your fix of some prospect action down in Mesa. That's always and it gives us the chance to talk about it on the pod, which is always fun. Any
right,
guys, so go ahead.
Well, and I would talk about some guys that jump out and stuff, but I think that's going to come naturally in this discussion, because a lot of the guys that I was sort of seeing there that I really liked have done interesting things in these first couple of days. Except I'll give you one name, and it's a new name that we haven't discussed. When I got there, he didn't have a name on the back of his jersey because it was his, I think Arizona Phil told me, his second day in the U.S. Edgardo De Leon. I watched him take batting practice without knowing who it was, and I'm telling you right now, Greg, fastest bat speed in the system.
Oh wow!
Like I genuinely believe he has the fastest in the system, and he's, you know, I think he's 17 still, so it's going to be really fun. He'll probably get in the complex league this, I guess, sort of spring or early summer, and he's going to be one that I'm really going to watch close.
So I'm first to admit on the show that like I pay hardly any attention to any Dominican Summer League action throughout the year. It's just like I've got my hands full enough watching all the full season affiliates that I'm paying a little bit of attention to what's going on in the complex league and paying no attention to what's going on in the Dominican Summer League. What position is Edgardo De Leon playing in the field besides like just obviously watching for his bat speed?
Yeah, he played like all the corners. I think he played in the DSL last year. I think he played the most at third base, a bunch at first base, but not at all the kind of frame that you would say is like definitely going to first base. Like still athletic guy, and so, you know, probably third baseman, and if he doesn't look great with the glove, headed to a corner outfield spot.
Righty swinger, righty hitter, or was
he's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had an 864 OPS in the DSL last year. Only 5 home runs in 48 games, but like from what I saw, when that guy fills out, he's gonna have some pop.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's hard. I mean, you don't see anything more than like 8 home runs in the DSL, just because those guys are literally 16, 17 years old. So like that's not out of the ordinary by any stretch of the imagination. So that's fun. That's a fun name to pull. And with him being 17, like we won't see him in Myrtle Beach this year. I'm sure.
No, I do not
think in Arizona. So
a
name to watch for next year, or if you're paying attention to the box scores in Arizona, De Leon is a guy to watch for sure. So. All right, man. You wanna kick things off with a guy that stood out, good or bad, I guess. I'm sure most of this, like it is typically on this podcast, will be good. any guy that stood out this week, first and foremost, from the minor league action. And that's what we're going to do. Sorry, before you go, that's what we'll do with this episode is we're just going to kind of go back and forth. We'll pick a name out of our hat of names we want to talk about, and just go through some of the players. No rhyme or reason, I don't think, in terms of position players, pitchers, affiliate, things like that. Just guys we want to talk about. So, Brian, I'll let you go first with the name that you want to talk about.
Sure, yeah. I'm going to start in Iowa just because we've seen the most of those guys so far. And a name that I have to admit when the Cubs acquired was someone who, when I watched video, didn't really pop, didn't really quite understand why they targeted him in a trade. And then when they put him on the 40-man roster, I mean, people who have been listening to this show throughout the offseason will know I was pretty surprised and even a little critical of it. Ben Cowles has really impressed me. He's hitting 333, 400, 556 through 7 games, but like almost toss out the results. He's a guy that he's looking way more athletic and twitchy than I thought he was. I mean, I guess when it was a small sample that I watched from last year, but he just didn't like sort of jump off as a guy that was anything special athletically. And I think he is sort of twitchy enough to make it as a big league middle infielder. We'll see if the bat is fully there. One thing that stuck out to me is high fastballs look like they might be a bit of an issue. So that's something I want to watch as the year goes on. It just seems like his hands are pretty low at the start of that swing, and catching up to those might be a problem. But he's hitting a lot of stuff hard, and just has sort of passed the eye test for me.
Yeah, the twitchiness is like super important for him because he's not a big dude, so like he's not going to get power that way. He can get power from being twitchy, having fast hands, like you talked about with De Leon. Yeah. That's where his power is going to come from, and the power's kind of showed up a little bit. He's peppered the walls in the outfield in Iowa that first week and a half or so, and played some shortstop, played some third base. I think that like he's going to make a living off of playing second, third, and short, all at like doable levels at the major league level. I think that's going to be important for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs made a pretty deliberate decision, I think, if you look at it, that they picked Ben Cowles over Luis Vasquez. And, I think we've talked so long that, like, Vasquez, we know the defense is going to work. We felt like it was going to take a long time in the majors, but there was a chance he could sort of patchwork his way to solid enough offensively. Cowles, I think, is way more like there are worlds here where he works offensively, and that you don't have to sort of put it, really try to like put a square peg through a round hole. That's of course not every world. Like there's going to be worlds that he fails and never plays a game for the Cubs even. But I think they got a guy with a little more chance to provide the kind of oomph that you would want a team with these ambitions to like roster.
Yeah, I kind of thought when they acquired him and when they chose him over Luis Vasquez, I just assumed the Cubs were doing something that's very Cubs-like in going with a player that can be kind of average at the plate and average in the field, versus a guy in Luis Vasquez who's going to be not good at the plate but has that plus tool in the field. I thought they just like went the route of kind of shooting the gap and going with an average profile across the board, but like. You're right. There may be more than just like a 90 WRC plus guy in the major leagues for Ben Cowles. So I still think that he spends obviously the majority of the year in Iowa, and I think that the fact that he's on the 40-man roster helps out. I think that honestly the decision with Vidal Brujan is going to be kind of important with Ben Cowles. I think
that's a good point.
Where right now Dansby Swanson is obviously at shortstop for the Cubs. Nico Horner is probably not ready to play shortstop. I don't know when he will be as far as his arm goes. His arms actually look pretty good at second base on some of those backhand plays. So I don't know when the Cubs will think that Nico is ready to be the backup shortstop. But you got Gage Workman as a backup shortstop too. But Vidal Brujan is kind of that guy as well. So if the Cubs end up moving on from Vidal Brujan, then Ben Cowles becomes like he inserts himself into that mix at shortstop as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'll stick in Iowa. I'll stick with an Iowa hitter here. I want to talk about Christian Franklin because the results have been pretty good from Christian Franklin. I think we talked about it. I talked about it on last week's show with Tommy Birch about that angle of Christian Franklin's double that his opening weekend where he went double off the left center wall, and the Iowa Cubs broadcast, or it was in Iowa, the Iowa Cubs broadcast got the perfect angle of watching that ball go out to left center field. It was sweet, but hitting the ball hard. Baseball America came out with an article today on Monday about guys that are standing out StatCast wise throughout minor league baseball. And Christian Franklin was the very first guy they mentioned in that article as a guy that's standing out as far as StatCast goes. And basically, the gist of the article, as far as Christian Franklin goes, was he is swinging at all the strikes. He is not swinging at any balls, and his exit velocities have improved. Where they're, I think they said 2.5 miles per hour harder this year than they were last year. They're now above major league average this year as far as his exit velos. So like, that's what you're looking for. Swing at strikes, don't swing at balls, hit the ball hard. That's what makes a hitter a good hitter. And so the fact that he's getting noticed by Baseball America, by a national publication, the fact that he's looking as good as he is, the fact that he's batting leadoff for these Iowa Cubs in AAA, just a lot to like from Christian Franklin so far this year in 2025.
And I think if we look at a couple of the games that were on StatCast in spring training that actually had bat tracking, I think he had above average bat speed too. And, just another sort of physical tool that's in his favor. Plus, you mentioned the good swing decision so far, 6 walks against 4 strikeouts. If you just look at right-handed pitchers, he's had 23 plate appearances, 6 walks, only 2 strikeouts. So 2 strikeouts in his, first 6 games worth of right-handed pitchers faced is pretty impressive. And, I think that's one of the things you wondered if it would be a problem for him early in his career, strikeouts at the upper levels. And he's doing a really good job handling it so far.
Yeah, he's got, I've got the graphic pulled up here on Christian Franklin. He's got a 106.9, 107 miles per hour, 90th EV this year, which is 3.5 miles per hour better than MLB average at that level. 95 miles per hour average exit velo. The only thing that he slacks in terms of like the batted ball, like how hard he's hitting the ball, is in the air. He's not hitting the ball as hard, which is obviously that was something we talked about last year. He needs to improve going into this year. But like right now, that is like the only thing he's not doing is hitting the ball hard in the air. So that's the zone contact rate. Like they have it broken down in that Baseball America article. I can't recommend enough to go check that out. But they have it broken down in the Baseball America article. Obviously, pretty small sample size, just a week and a half worth of games. But they have it broken down by pitch and how he's doing against each pitch, where he's got a 83% zone contact rate against four seamers. Like and he said in the interview with him this past offseason, I remember specifically asking him, I was like, it was a problem for you coming into pro ball hitting high fastballs. I was like, how did you cut down on hitting high or swinging and missing on fastballs? And he was like, I just don't swing at them anymore. Like he goes, I'm not making more contact with them. I'm just not swinging at them anymore. I just refuse to swing at them. It's like, need to do it, So, the results are good in terms of the stat line, but it's more so just everything else about Christian Franklin that's been impressive to me.
Yeah, if there's a world, and please God, let there be this world that Kyle Tucker, Pete Crow Armstrong, and Ian Happ are also the 2026 Chicago Cubs outfield. Christian Franklin's a great sort of extra bench guy to pair with those, being a right-handed hitter, being someone who covers all 3 outfield positions. It was just a really, really nice roster fit if it comes to that, and building a nice case for himself so far.
For sure. Who you got next?
All right. I'm going to take us to AA. I guess we're just working our way down the ladder. So, correct me if we're going to go back. Actually, do you want to hit on one more Iowa Cub outfielder? Because
let's go ahead and do that. Since we're already on Iowa, let's talk about Owen Casey a little bit, because if we're talking about a guy who's hitting the ball hard, the only person who's hitting the ball harder in AAA this year than Christian Franklin is Owen Casey. He's this year. I know that was a theme of the episode with Tommy Birch last week was hard hit balls, but we're gonna bring it back to that again this time. Owen Casey has a 79% hard hit rate this year so far in AAA, which is the best in all of AAA baseball.
Yeah,
he is. Essentially every time he makes contact, it seems like it's going hard. The downside with Owen Casey right now is that in the game on Sunday, right on Sunday's game, he was scoring in, I believe it was the sixth inning. He went rounded third, scored, and as he was crossing home plate, he stepped on the catcher's foot and twisted his ankle. And so Tommy Birch did report that it is an ankle sprain for Owen Casey. Did not report how long he'd be out. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But with an ankle sprain, it's kind of like, all right, it's April, right? Let's let
Right.
that heal up nice before coming back. So
That's
that's a
like, I
downer.
feel like that's a 2 to 6 weeker, depending on the severity, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, hopefully it's not too long. We'll have to see, but really, really promising start to the season for Owen Casey.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I've watched probably half or just over their games, and I've had bad luck catching like good Owen. I feel like I've seen a lot of the games where he struggled with strikeouts. He's 40% strikeout rate so far, and then every time I don't watch a game, I look at the box score, and he's absolutely crushed. Did go back and watch the home run, which if people didn't see was an absolute thing of beauty to right field, 450 feet or something ridiculous. So yeah, just wish him. I mean, he's had a lot of injury issues the last couple of months that I think are mostly just bad luck injuries, and so just rooting for him to get 100% healthy and get a long chance to just keep showing what he's doing. And if he's hitting the ball hard, I mean, that's it with Owen. If Owen can consistently show that he can hit the ball hard, he's going to find his power, and that's what's going to make him a difference-making big leaguer, is if he shows off that power.
Completely agree. I got nothing else to add. Nothing else to add there.
Cool. Well, I want to talk through some Knoxville pitchers. The first one to me that I want to hit on is Will Sanders. Will is, there were 5. We talked a lot this offseason that there were 5 really good South Bend pitchers down the end of last year, and we didn't know who was going to make it to Knoxville and who was going to stay in South Bend. And ultimately, not that many made it to Knoxville. Drew Gray, unfortunately, we heard got hurt. Arian Rodriguez, I saw him in spring training. He was awesome, but he's a little behind, I think. So I think he'll be with
just not stretched out just not stretched out to the point where he's ready for a full season, right?
Exactly. I saw him pitch 3 innings in a time where other guys looked like they were more ready for 4 to 5. So I think we'll see him soon, but I think that's going to be in South Bend. Jackson Wiggins, shockingly, was a South Bend decision. We'll talk about him in a second. So Will Sanders, kind of the guy that actually got the promotion we were waiting for, and he didn't have the best year in South Bend last year, but boy, I came away really impressed in his first start. I saw a guy that almost has a little bit more maturely developed plan going into this year than maybe at times last year, where I think they were almost working on the whole arsenal at once, trying to sort of figure it out what worked and what didn't. The guy that I saw the other day threw more cutters to right-handed hitters than any other pitch. And so I think that's sort of setting the table for a guy that can pitch to soft contact when it's there. And if he gets late in the count, then he can go for his strikeouts. His velo was a little up from last year. Last year was often in that sort of 89 to 93 range. It was more like
it was like 94, 95 a lot.
It was 94, 95 early, 93, 94 late. I think like there was one that technically touched 96, and there were like 2 that were technically 92. But man, living in that 93 to 95 range for him is really good. There's a little work left to do with the slider curveball combo. I think that's not as good as it could be, but he's got really good feel for a changeup, and now this cutter emerging as a better pitch for him is huge.
The strategy just looked completely different than it did last year for him. Where last year it just seemed like he was going out there trying to strike everybody out, which is a fair, that's, as a pitcher, you want to strike guys out, obviously. But it looked like that was his one goal, was to not get an out, but to strike a guy out. And I mean, his line this week was 5 innings pitched. So going 5 innings in your first outing of the year is impressive by itself.
For sure.
5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and only 2 strikeouts. So not a whole lot of strikeouts, not a whole lot of swing and miss, but he had a 78% strike rate. 78% of the pitches he threw were strikes, which last year over the course of the season, it was 63%. So up 15% or so from last year. Just one start, obviously, but just pounding the zone was super important. But not only was he pounding the zone in terms of throwing a lot of strikes, but he was also hitting his spots a lot. Wherever Pablo Aliendo wanted the ball is where Will Sanders threw it with pretty much every pitch, with the cutter, with the fastball, with the slider. Even he was hitting his spots, and like you said, the slider was. There were a few flashes where I was like, "Oh, that's a really good pitch," and there were a lot more where I was like, that still has some work to do." But he was still hitting a spot with the slider, and so to a lot of lefties where he was kind of backfooting them a little bit with the slider, and obviously diving out of the zone to righties as well. So I don't know, man. I also came away really really impressed with Will Sanders in the way that he attacked, the way that he hit his spots, and if we get more of that Will Sanders, even if the stuff is just like slightly better, but the command and control is significantly better, that's a really good pitcher.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, to me, I don't know if you agree, but I'm not yet seeing the kind of guy that I could imagine ranking in the top 10 in the system. But I'm like, even if this year goes really well, it's this stuff is just sort of one notch below the kind of players that get ranked there. But I do see a guy that I was ranking maybe in the early 20s that now I'm thinking about more in the late teens if I think about this system. So like, I mean, that is a meaningful jump.
Yeah, we talk about the pitchers in this organization and how you got Cade Horton up top, and then it's kind of the Brandon Birdsell, Jackson Wiggins, and then it's who do you like after that, right? It's do you like Will Sanders? Do you like Arian Rodriguez? Like who like take your pick of the next best pitching prospect. And more starts like that, Will Sanders starts to creep closer to the Jackson Wiggins and Brandon Birdsells and separate himself from Arian Rodriguez or Connor Noland or insert player here. So yeah, man, I liked it. I was about it, and he's like I talked about on the Knoxville Smokies preview. Like we're gonna be out here cheering for Will Sanders just because of the personality. So if he can go out there and shove as well, that's a fun guy to root for.
Totally.
All right, let's. I'll come off of Knoxville, but I'll stick with the pitching thing. Actually, I'll go back to Iowa for pitchers. I'll go to Connor Noland, which nice. I don't have a ton to say because we talked about him after his opening day start last week, but he did make another start this week. And the thing that was notable with Connor Noland this week is that he had another successful outing in terms of the results. Right, he went 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 3 Ks, and he only threw 76 pitches in those 6 innings. So super efficient, but it was much different this time compared to how he went out on opening day. When he went out on opening day, we saw improved velo, which we still saw on this outing this week, but he was just racking up strikeouts and no hard hit balls at all on the opening day. I think he gave up like 6 hard hit balls on this week's outing. And so just a different way to attack hitters. Probably got a little bit lucky from time to time, but like you're going to have outings like that. And if you can still go 6 innings with 1 run, regardless of how you're doing it. Now, like moving forward, are we going to get more of what we saw week 1, where he was missing bats and giving up no hard contact and still getting good results? Or are we going to get closer to week 2, where it's hard hit balls and just kind of ground balls, get him through the game and stuff like that? It's somewhere in between is where he's going to ultimately end up being. But like, I'd like him to inch closer to that first version than the second version, because if you give up 6 or 7 hard hit balls throughout an outing, like that's not always going to yield that type of result.
Yeah, I mean he is a guy though that just sort of comes to each start and I don't know, figures out what's working that day and just guts his way through it. The kind of guy that if he gives up 2 runs in the first inning, it's not going to affect how he pitches the other innings. Like he has just as good of a chance to still get through 6 and allow 2 runs. Just the longer he does it, just keep continuing to succeed at these high levels, just the more respect I get for him as a guy that just executes,
Outgetter. He's just an outgetter. That's what he is. All right, man. You got another pitcher?
I mean, I do think we should, we're talking Iowa pitchers. We are this podcast. We should talk about Cade Horton's debut, right? And mostly because, I mean, I'll hit you with my hot take of the podcast. if Cade Horton looks like that for like 2 more outings, he's the top prospect in the system again. Cade was the problems that I had with Cade in 2024 was, to me, the fastball grade, which I was lower on the fastball in 2023 than other people. It was even worse in 2024. It got flat. The velocity came down a little bit. Operating more as a hard cutter. They definitely, I think, tried to work it back to the 2023 shape, and it showed itself. He touched 98, and he touched maybe more importantly, he touched 21 inches of vertical break, which is elite for a right-handed pitcher. He sort of struggled to hold the vertical break number as the game went on, but the velocity was really good. He had 14 swinging strikes in only 59 pitches. So yeah, I mean
and a lot with the fastball, a lot with the fastball too. I think, what was it,
Totally.
9 with the fastball? It was a lot with the fastball.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the bones are there. It was definitely a little rusty still. Didn't throw as many strikes as you'd want, but we're getting close to being able to tell you guys to get excited that you have a guy that's going to affect Cubs baseball games this summer. I don't want to overreact from one start, but I'm going to overreact pretty soon.
No, he ended up with 3 or 4 walks. I think it might have been 4
4.
walks, and he was pitching in some pretty deep rain. Like it was coming down pretty hard. It was his second to last inning that he was out there. It was coming down pretty good, and then the rain essentially stopped when the Iowa Cubs were back in hitting. The rain stopped. He went back out there, and it really started coming down hard. And so that's where the walks started to pile up for that last inning. And then might have been Krisky. I don't know who. Somebody came in and saved those runs that he left out there when he got pulled from the game. But yeah, man, just really strong start. The slider looked really good. He dropped a few curves in there that I thought looked pretty decent as well. But it was the fastball. It was a fastball sitting for the first few innings, 95 to 97 was that's good. That's no joke. So yeah, he did the watch this meme. What was it, Jason Derulo meme? Is that what it is? Where he's like, watch this. He heard he was talking about the fastball, and he was like, no, we're gonna improve that this year. So, but you're right though. It is worth mentioning that it wasn't as good as the start wore on, right? So it's gonna have to continue being good throughout a start, and not just in the first 2 innings of a start moving forward. But yeah,
and what I had heard when I was in Arizona, talking to, I think I can say Arizona Phil, because he mentioned this on the Cub Porter. He said that based on what he was seeing in spring training, that he was starting to think Jackson Wiggins was a better prospect than Cade Horton.
Yeah.
And I heard so much praise for Jackson. I unfortunately didn't get to see him down there, but everything I heard was awesome about Jackson's spring. I don't even, I think if you went into the year and you were thinking of Cade Horton as the 2024 guy, I don't even think it's that crazy of a take from Phil. I think what we're seeing is when the lights turned on in April, Cade was able to get back to like a whole nother level. So I think he is, definitively the top pitching prospect in the system. But, we can talk about Jackson because, what we heard in spring is, the command that we talked about when we had Brendan King on the show in preseason. Year 2 removed from Tommy John, the command is looking way better. I was truly shocked that he didn't get the AA assignment. He pitched with AA all through spring training. I don't really have a great reason why they made that late switch down to South Bend. But then, you watched the game a little closer than I did.
Yeah.
So you talk about Jackson, I don't think it was his best start, but I'm guessing you saw some stuff to like.
Yeah. So I guess first with the assignment to South Bend for Jackson, I before we entered spring training, I had Jackson Wiggins assigned projected to South Bend. And then we just heard good thing after good thing after good thing down in spring training, and that he was working out with the Knoxville with the AA level team. And I was like, oh, then I shifted him over on my projected depth chart over to Knoxville, and then he was reassigned back to South Bend. So that was an interesting path, I guess. Just kind of I was all kinds of different emotions for Jackson Wiggins and his assignment. So I wasn't nearly as like shocked just because I had him there originally, but like it was kind of surprising. Uh, yeah. So if we're getting, if there's a Debbie Downer section of this podcast, I think it'd be this Jackson Wiggins start that we saw this week from him. I it was rough. Honestly, it was rough in a lot of different ways. I think there was I don't even have his final line written down here, but I think the final line was not too bad, right?
Yeah,
You have
only one run allowed in 3.1 innings. He struck out 4, walked 3, gave up 3 hits.
yeah, so like that line is not all that different than like the
No,
line we were talking about
2.7 ERA.
Yeah, it's like not bad. But I was in watching the game, I it was rough, man. We'll start with the fastball. The fastball, there were just a ton of arm side misses with the fastball, both to right-handed hitters and to left-handed hitters. He was missing outside, like out to lefties and up and in a lot to righties. I would have been not it would not have been a comfortable at bat if I'm walking up there as a right-handed hitter against Jackson Wiggins that night. I'd say that maybe half of his fastballs thrown on that night were ones that he missed arm side and high. And that was a problem we saw with Jackson Wiggins a lot last year too, where he kind of fly open a little bit and watch that ball kind of sail out of his hand a little bit. So like that was not a thing that was, oh, like this is new. Like it was something we saw last year from him too. So like that was the most disappointing part. If it would have been something we've never seen from him, where it's like just something out of the ordinary, I would have been like, oh, like first start of the year, fine, whatever. It's cold, like that can't be easy. And all of those caveats still apply to this situation. But it was just the fact that we saw him fly open a lot last year too, and kind of maintaining those mechanics is super important. So it was the fastball misses that disappointed me the most. They kind of bled over into the slider a little bit too, where the slider would kind of back up on him a little bit because he was kind of missing arm side with it, and so that was getting hit a little bit more. The fastball was just being missed and taken for balls. The slider was being able to be hit a little bit more because it would back up and get into the heart of the plate a little bit more. But the things that stood out in a positive light for Jackson Wiggins in his start were that he threw a few curveballs. I think it was like 3 or 4 curveballs that he threw. And that was kind of a fun little sprinkle. And that was like they were true curveballs. Like he's got the true like sweeper slider. And then the curveball was like a downer, like maybe not quite a 12-6 curveball, but like that similar shape for that curveball. And so that was not something we saw a lot of from Jackson Wiggins last year. So that was kind of fun. Nothing enough that like there weren't enough thrown that we can like draw conclusions about how good the pitch is. It was just fun to see. And then he threw, I think it was 2 changeups in that outing, and they were good. I maintain that changeup I think is his best pitch. I said that he had that one outing where he threw, I think it was literally 1 changeup last year. It was like maybe his second start of the year in Myrtle Beach, and I was like, what is it? What is that pitch? And I remember reaching out to Sam Wiederhaft. I was like, can you please check with Jackson if that was a changeup? And he did. And he was like, yeah, that was a changeup. I was like, why are you throwing just 1 or 2 of those pitches? Like throw more of those, because I think that they are really good. And the 2 that he threw this week were really strong. So I mean, I had a lot of thoughts. Sorry, I had a lot of thoughts about Jackson Wiggins in the start. But
on the changeup piece, it is worth noting that the Beloit lineup he was facing only had 1 lefty. And so just, if he's sort of confining himself in his head to change up being mostly a lefty pitch, that sort of naturally limited it, I'd imagine. And by the same token, though, a lineup that's going up against him that has 8 righties in it is a lineup, especially at the A-ball level, that he should dominate. And, we're going to give him a big old pass because it's April 4th in Beloit, Wisconsin. We are speaking to you guys in 30-degree, feels like 10-degree weather. So, all these baseball players get a pass right now. But the Jackson that we kept hearing about in Arizona is better than that Beloit lineup in a way that I don't think he fully showed. Yeah,
let me make it abundantly clear that I'm not lower on Jackson Wiggins than I was 5 days ago. Like, that's not the case. It was just, I think, and honestly, like, had he not apparently shoved in spring training, hadn't all the positive news not come out about him between Arizona Phil or the front office when they did interviews and things like that.
What it looked like last year.
Yeah, I would have been like, oh, okay, all right. Like, we're still working through some things. That's fine. But I was like so excited. I was so excited for Jackson Wiggins to start, and I ended up not being able to watch it live. So I went back and watched it that night, and I was like, ah, damn, like it's just not what. And especially because I went back and watched it, having looked at the line, the stat line. I was like, oh, this is a pretty good stat line. And I watched, I was like, this is not what I expected to see. So He'll be fine. He'll get it all figured out. The stuff is obviously still there. It's the command, and that's a very specific miss that he had with that fastball. It wasn't like he was all over the place scatter plotting it. It was one specific type of miss with that fastball. So, yeah, that's all I had with Jackson.
Cool. Well, I want to talk about, I think what's emerging is the most fun little, if somebody wants to dive into the Cubs farm system right now, the most fun little pocket that you can sort of depend on to get good enjoyment is the Myrtle Beach top 4 hitters. We're going to run through all of them here. I saw them the most of any affiliate when I was down in Arizona. And I was really impressed by that top 4, and then they all brought it this week in their 3 games that they played. So I don't know. Do you want to? Should we say all 4 up at the top?
I'd say just go one at a time. I'll give your thoughts, and then I'll tack on some for each of these guys. But just go one at a time here.
Yeah, I mean, so my favorite, and I think the guy that has really taken a step forward to maybe be a guy that we can begin thinking about as a top 10 potential guy is Angel Cepeda. Was really impressed with him. Everything I saw in Arizona, like, a guy that has a little bit of twitch, but also smoothness, quick in person, has strength to him already. Just a guy that belongs very much, and he played really well. I saw him hit a home run in Arizona. In the games this week, he hit a home run. I thought so. He got a double and a home run in the 3 games they played so far. So he has a .533 slugging, just in that little short sample. He, I think the thing that maybe I'll wonder about is if the frame gets big enough that there's going to be like the good pop. I'm guessing it's probably not. I'm guessing it's more a guy that sort of settles in around average, but average at a premium position. Yeah. And he looks like a guy that's going to be able to stick in the middle infield. Maybe it's more second base than it is shortstop, but just came away really impressed, and a guy that I could easily see being like the number 9 prospect in the system or something at the end of the year.
Angel Cepeda has been kind of a fun one because he was not like the top signing in that class technically by all the rankings and the money that he got and stuff like that. But from the moment he signed as an international free agent, it was like, oh, like he's not the guy, but like the Cubs got something with him. Yeah. And then he came stateside and he played in the complex league, and he was not the guy getting the most love, but it's like, hey, the Cubs got something. Like it's always been kind of like, hey, like he may not be the top 5 prospect, but he's something. He's something worth keeping an eye on, and that has progressed all the way this year to Myrtle Beach, where it's like, hey, there's quite a few guys in this lineup, and I think that now he's more squarely on radars now than he ever has been in his career up to this point, in his short career, obviously. Still 19 years old. Yeah. And but yeah, no, I think that it was fun seeing that home run the other night, because that's going to be important. That's going to be fun to watch, because I think that a lot of these guys have these young middle infielders have come up, and I'm thinking about like I'm watching like Chris Pasiola is another guy that maybe not middle infielder, but like third baseman, where like the strength just has not shown up in terms of over the fence power. But if Angel Cepeda can show that like right off the bat, then that's going to be pretty big in terms of like the way that I view him throughout this season. And so obviously manning shortstop on a daily basis, it looks like he is the shortstop in Myrtle Beach, with Ariandis Ramon playing some second base. So I mean, he'll shift to second base, maybe play some third and stuff like that. But like, he is the shortstop prospect at that level, and that's fun.
Yeah, I think one of those extra base at bats, I think it was the home run. He fell down 0-2 in the count, looking, and got like fooled, and then battled back a little bit, and then makes that in at bat adjustment to get an extra base hit at the end of it. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you see that from a 19-year-old in low A, and it really clicks. And I'm excited about him. So then sort of moving on in the lineup, he either bats first or second. The other first or second hitter is Alexi Lumpuy.
Lumpuy.
Lumpuy. Oh, thank you.
Lumpuy, I believe is how it's pronounced.
So probably a new name for a lot of people that listen to us. He's a Cuban signed outfielder. He's going to play a lot of center field with this team. He's listed at 6 foot, 180 pounds. He bats lefty, and people are going to like him because he is as twitchy as they come. He is just he's like a spark plug, just like lightning rod, but he's not, when you hear spark plug in baseball, I think you often think of like the 5'9".
You think of Leo Espinosa as opposed to Alexi
Exactly.
Lumpur.
Yeah, but no, this guy's got some frame. He's going to get bigger, and yeah, he moves quick. His bat moves quick. His body and his swing moves quick. His hands move quick, and then he gets on the base paths and he goes too. He hit 333 in those first 3 games, so he's looking solid too. What did you think of him? Because it was probably your first time.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, he's one of my favorite storylines in the early going. Just the fact that he was on this roster, right? Like we did not, he did not play in the Arizona Complex League. He jumped straight from the Dominican Summer League up to Myrtle Beach in full season ball, and so that's surprising in itself. And so you're like, oh wow, like this guy who skipped the Complex League is now in Myrtle Beach. Not only that, he's batting leadoff. He batted leadoff on opening day for this Myrtle Beach Pelicans team. It's like that's fun, and that's noteworthy for sure in terms of the way that the Cubs front office and development staff views Alexi Lumpur, right? Like that's important. And we saw Jared Banner come out and have comments to Jonathan Mayo, I believe, about Lumpur specifically. It's like that's man, for him to call out a guy that is just now coming to full season ball, that's awesome. And I mean, talking about Angel Cepeda and Alexi Lumpur, I pointed out yesterday on Sunday's game, and they batted back to back, and they were facing off against I forget the name of the pitcher on Charleston, but he was a 5-year player in college, the pitcher for Charleston, 5-year player in college, finished off his career in the SEC at Kentucky. He was preseason first team All-America last year at Kentucky. Yeah. So like this is a very established. He's 24 years old, facing off against Alexi Lumpur, who skipped over Complex League ball. He's in his like 3rd game in full season ball, stateside ball, and Angel Cepeda, who is 19 years old. Like that is crazy for those guys to face off against a guy like that pitcher for Charleston.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a guy who's already a top 25 prospect in the org. Excited to see where he goes. 3rd in the lineup has often been and the best hitter, I think, so far on Myrtle Beach, Jose Escobar. We saw Jose last year. I think we both talked up liking him. He hit 462 in that series and just looked the part, man. I mean, he just every time he came up, it looked like he was doing something with the ball. He also was another guy I saw in spring training that had a couple good games down there. Not a huge presence in the box, but hits the ball harder than his frame would suggest. He's stronger in his lower half than most guys his age. Just really impressed with him. A guy that I probably think, don't you, South Bend before the season's up. For
sure. I've seen enough. I've teased it over the past like year now. That's like, oh, like Jose Escobar reminds me a little bit of Jonathan Perlaza. I've seen enough. Jose Escobar is Jonathan Perlaza. Like I have to go back and look at the stats specifically and see like how they like the walk rates and strikeout rates and how they compare. But if you look at Jose Escobar in the box and you go back and look at Jonathan Perlaza when he was at that level and at that age, they are the same, dude. Like the strong bottom half, like the strong butt thighs, like he looks like Jonathan Perlaza did.
Yeah,
smaller in stature in terms of height, but also like he's playing some left field. He was originally a second baseman, third baseman, like Jonathan Perlaza, and then moved out to the outfield. Like it's the same thing. And Jonathan Perlaza, for what it's worth, like I don't know where I ended up ranking Jonathan Perlaza. I'm probably higher on Jose Escobar than I ever was on Jonathan Perlaza in terms of like my like prospect rankings. I was a hype man for Perlaza, but I never viewed him as like a top 15 prospect in the organization. Right. I don't think. So I'd probably view Jose Escobar a little bit higher than Perlaza. But dude, even Perlaza ended up having a pretty like putting it together where like he was really impressive in Iowa. A lot of people were calling for him to be called up to the majors.
Yeah.
He went over, played overseas, and has been pretty good last year during his time overseas. So like, yeah, I mean, you can ask for you can't ask for much more of a career path for Jose Escobar than Jonathan Perlaza, I feel like.
Totally. And then the cleanup hitter in this lineup, are the last guy that we'll hit on, is Cole Mathis, the second round pick from last year. And I mostly just want to bring him up because the fun stat of he played 2 games this last weekend, had 10 plate appearances. He walked in 6 of them. And so, if you want to sign for a college player that's too good for a level, it's a guy that doesn't bite at the like fringe breaking balls that you're going to see in low A. And you're not gonna get Cole Mathis to expand like 4 inches outside the plate like often A ball hitters do. So it is only going to be a matter of time before he's in South Bend. Maybe they wait for the warm air to come in, but yeah, he's not going to be spending much more time in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, the broadcaster for Charleston was gushing about Cole Mathis as well, apparently from what he saw during batting practice or something, but gushing about Cole Mathis. And so, yeah, I mean, he's too good for that level. I mean, I think I definitely did. You might have as well had him projected for South Bend to start off the year at a DH position there, but I was surprised to see him in Myrtle Beach, honestly, to start off the season. So yeah, he won't be there for very long, I'd imagine.
And then the last guy that I have in my notes to talk about, and then I'll turn things over to you, but to stay in Myrtle Beach, and the guy I saw in Arizona is JP Wheat. You're gonna hear about JP Wheat a lot this year, I have a feeling, because this guy has put in the work to go from just when he was drafted, it was sort of like live interesting arm, to then it was like a guy that we heard was touching the high 90s but had no idea where it's going. Now he's a guy that's touching 100 and has some idea where it's going. I'm happy to say, when I saw him in Arizona on the backfields, I want to say he started the game off like walk, hit by pitch, walk or something. And I was like, oh boy, like, this is like, he's had this issue before.
Yeah.
And then he settled in. He got through 4 innings. He was awesome I think the 3rd inning of the start I saw him in Arizona was truly, truly great. And then he pitched 4 innings with no earned runs in his season debut. He has a legit plus slider. It's tight, sort of just like old school diagonal slider offering. He's got some feel for a changeup that he's throwing in games decently now. I think you'll see it against lefties quite a bit. And then the fastball just explodes. He's one of those guys that in spring training, you get all the pitchers who aren't throwing that day come and watch the games, and everyone was on plate looking at the data on what the velo of the fastball was, because it's just always fun to see when it says 100 and he gets it there.
I mean, obviously way too early to call him out on this, but like it reminds me a little bit of a Porter Hodge situation. Not that JP Wheat's going to be Porter Hodge, but a Porter Hodge situation on how like Hodge was a starting pitcher in the lower minors. And it's like, let's get him as many innings as possible. And being a starting pitcher is the way to do that. And now obviously Porter Hodge is a reliever in the majors. And I could see that route with JP Wheat, where it's like, let's just get this guy innings. And the way we can get him more innings is having him start baseball games down in Myrtle Beach and South Bend before maybe he gets up to the upper levels and he becomes a reliever. But especially when you have a fastball like that and a slider like that, you can kind of lean on those 2 offerings. So yeah, that's
I remember pictures of him when he was drafted, just the most rail skinny guy you could ever see. Credit to JP. He's got some man strength now. He definitely put a bunch of work on leg day and many times this offseason, because he now has a base that I think is going to help him control pitches. We talked about that with Jackson Wiggins in the offseason. Sometimes we talk about strength development as adding miles per hour, but sometimes it helps with command because it helps give sturdiness to your delivery. And that's starting to happen for JP. So yeah, a guy that is going to break out this year.
I think Will Sanders looks a little bit stronger and more well put together this year too than he did last year.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, I've got just last 2 players here that I want to hit on, and nothing too deep, but Evan Aschenbeck is a guy I just want to give some love to on this episode, because he is a starting pitcher now. He this week went 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, 7 strikeouts on 70 pitches. And so, unfortunately, it was the first game of the year, right? He pitched opening day for Myrtle Beach, and the camera view was from the press box angle. It was not behind the pitching mound. So you couldn't really get a good feel of what the pitches look like. But in terms of numbers, he may have had he may right now have the strongest start of the season.
I think
with
so.
those 0 earned runs over 4 innings. And so I want to give him some love, obviously, for the performance, but also, like, I think that I will admit that over the offseason, I ran into the situation. I think I've even said it on this podcast, where like all of those college pitchers that were drafted last year all ran together to me. Aschenbeck and Capel and Reisdorf and all of those guys, they were all the same in my head to a certain degree, right? I had certain things that I could pick out for each of them, but in a lot of ways they were morphed together as one pitcher, one draft pitcher. But Evan Aschenbeck deserves some love in terms of like the way that he is now a starting pitcher. He was a reliever. He was the college, I think, stopper of the year is what they call it in college, which is the closer, the reliever of the year. He won that award during his time in Texas A&M. He was first team All-American last year during his time at Texas A&M. But the way a closer is used in college is not the same way a closer is used in Major League Baseball or minor league baseball, where the closer is like going 1 inning in pro baseball,
right?
And maybe they'll go 2 or whatever. But in college, like Evan Aschenbeck was the closer.
He averaged almost 2.5.
Exactly. Like he was pitching to end games the last 3 innings or so. But so not the traditional way, but now he's a starting pitcher with the Cubs organization. And I think that he's got the pedigree there to be a good pitcher in the minor leagues. And so he's definitely a guy that should be catching our eyes more than we gave him credit for over the offseason, I guess.
Yeah. We did talk about with Jackson Wiggins facing a lineup of mostly righties. It's worth noting that Aschenbeck faced a lineup that was 2/3 lefties. So in support of his side, he struck out 6 of the 9 lefties he faced. So that was responsible for most of his strikeouts. Just seeing it from that angle, I was kind of zooming quickly, but it seemed that for hitters and something that he's comfortable throwing in every count, early in an at bat, late in at bat, multiple locations. So I think lefties at this level stand absolutely no chance. We'll see if righties can do anything for him. Probably not. He seems like a guy that's going to breeze through both levels of A-ball to me. The kind of guy that, we'll start seeing who he is as a prospect when he gets to Double-A.
And I think we could see that this year from him potentially towards the end of the year. So one last guy I want to just hit on here is Christian Hernandez, because he's been generating a lot of buzz from spring training on to now. Obviously getting a lot of love from fans, but getting a lot of love from the front office. Like a lot of love from the front office in terms of not only like his performance, but his maturity on the field compared to past years. Like it's just, there's been a lot of just rumblings about Christian Hernandez might be a dude again, right? And so something that actually stood out to me, I mean, he obviously put up really good numbers this week. I think he has the second highest OPS on the South Bend Cubs roster, right? Actually, the South Bend Cubs roster does not have a whole lot of good stats across the board offensively, but he's one of, I think, 2 guys that does have good numbers across the board for South Bend. So that was all good. I loved seeing what I saw from him hitting. But what actually stood out to me the most was on Sunday, he played second base. And it wasn't like, last year we saw him playing some second base when Jefferson Rojas was around, where it's like Jefferson Rojas is the shortstop, Christian Hernandez, you slide over to second base. This on Sunday was Christian Hernandez at second, and Rafael Morel was playing shortstop. And Rafael Morel, for how fun he is on the field and off the field, he's not a top 10 prospect in this organization. He's not a top 15 prospect in this organization. So the fact that the Cubs shifted Christian Hernandez over to second base makes me think that they have confidence in him continuing to climb the ladder in the system and be some major league depth in next year, the year after that, whenever it might be, because they have confidence in his ability to play a good shortstop, because we know he can play a good shortstop. And so like the fact that they shifted him over to second base to get him a little bit more positional flexibility with Rafael Morel at shortstop, as opposed to a guy like Jefferson Rojas, who you need to have at shortstop, that just kind of stood out to me a little bit.
I heard there's a chance we might see Christian play a few games in center field this year, just to get another look, just expand the versatility a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised when that happened. I'll to not to talk about the Arizona trip 1,000 times, but he hit by far the loudest home run that I saw there. It was off a Cubs prospect in a scrimmage game. But first pitch, Naz Moulay fastball. He was ready for it, and he hit it. I mean, man, the sound of it was something else. It got like the oohs and ahs from even the Cubs front office on the second level, and so he got some notice for that one. And yeah, he's I hope he's ready for a breakout because he's a fun one.
That's fun. All right, man. I think we ran through everybody on my list. Yours too?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. What are anything that you're looking for, anything that you're excited for the next couple weeks or so before? I mean, I think you'll be on in a couple of weeks back on the show. Anything you got your eyes on in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, Sam Armstrong was a guy that when he pitched in the major league game and absolutely shoved, that was really exciting to me. I'm excited to see if Sam, is like takes the Brandon Birdsell path of last year to this season and see him be sort of the dude in Knoxville to at the beginning of the year. I have that expectation for him. I'm really excited for Arian Rodriguez because the 3 innings I saw him pitch in Arizona were great. Phil said it was the best he's ever seen him. And yeah, I'm going to be just watching this Myrtle Beach team like crazy. I just think that they are so fun. That's such a cool roster with a lot of names that are new for us. So excited for them to get back to Myrtle Beach to what we know is a great broadcast and to see everybody in the way that baseball should be shown on stream.
Yeah. I'll early on in the season, I'll be watching a lot of Iowa, a lot of Myrtle Beach. I'll be watching kind of the highest and lowest levels of the system, I think, early on. I want to give it a shout out to wrap up the show. I want to give it a shout out to another Cubs minor league podcast at this point. Do you see the announcement that the broadcasters for each of the affiliates, Jason Kempf, Richie Giuliani in Knoxville, Brendan King in South Bend, and then Luke Maley, the new broadcaster out in Myrtle Beach, are getting together to do a podcast. It sounds like that they're just kind of once a month or so is what it sounds like. They're going to release a show on YouTube and probably the other podcasting platforms as well, and just talk about like how the teams look over the course of the last month or so. So different than what we're doing here when we're honing. Like we just spent this entire episode talking specifically about prospects all the way through. Sounds like, I mean, it makes sense that their show is going to be a little bit more geared towards the minor league teams, which we don't really cover the standings of the teams and stuff like that. So if you're looking for more Cubs minor league content, you can go check out their work. I think it's over at the Iowa Cubs YouTube feed is where you can find that one. So those guys are all terrific, and we'll still pester them about coming on the show every so often, and I'm sure they'll do it because they're the best. So I want to give a shout out to them. But man, we're back in the swing of things here. We'll be back in your ears in not a couple weeks anymore. We'll be back in 1 week talking about what happens this weekend in minor league baseball with the Cubs prospects. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in over the offseason through all the chaos of this past month and a half or so with the season previews, the interviews, the different schedule, the every other week, the just covering prospect lists and stuff like that. Now we can actually sit down.
We made it.
Each week we made it. We can talk about the prospects in action. So thank you for getting here. If you're new, thanks for joining us. And we'll talk to you guys in one short week. Take care, guys.
Go Cubs.